Yeah, Rahul, I'm back. Can you please give me access?
Yes, sir. You can share your screen now.
Okay, great. Screen mode. Now we go with this. I hope the screen is visible now. Yeah, Rahul, I'm back. Can you please give me access?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is there another session going on today? We'll wait till 4:10, then I'll start, okay?
Okay, sir. There is no session today.
Okay.
We have. I have started YouTube live. We can, as you said, we can wait till 4:10, then you can start.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Jai Bhim, everyone. So today we start our second session on the... Okay, got it. Jai Bhim, everyone. Today we continue our session on the adventure genre. Yesterday we discussed a little bit about detective as well as the heist subgenre of adventure genre. Today we will discuss revenge, a little bit about travels uh, with a shadow of science fiction, as well as the pirate or on the seas or on the open seas adventures. And we will close this session with the superhero or superhuman genre. Just a little introduction of the genre, not too much into that particular story type. So I start with the quote: revenge is a dish best served cold. Now, this quote has been attributed to various books or storylines and has been used in different formats across the books, the novels, as well as in the TV series or movies. However, the key here is the theme of rebirth. The prodigal son returns, a person who has been wronged by the system. That particular person is either thrown out of that society or assumed to be completely absent. And that particular person comes back to uh, take the revenge, and most often might end up in self destruction. So you have to balance your story where your protagonist, towards the end of the story, how far is he or she willing to go to punish the people who have wronged him. So that is one of the changes apart from the other story beats overall. So today it's the week 7. The reason I say week 7, so last week's session was yesterday, that was week 6. Today is the week 7 of 8-week workshop, and our next Saturday's session will be our last session of this Art of Story Writing workshop. Disclaimer and the rules remain the same. Today we are going to discuss most of the classical stories, so I don't think there is a challenge with any of the copyright, but still, if anyone feels there is an issue, please let us know, and I'll work with the Digital Nalanda team to remove said references. And again, it's been pretty slow on the engagement part. If you feel you have any feedback, suggestion, please write to storiesanddoodles@gmail.com. Otherwise, also, if you would like to discuss some of your stories, at least for the month of April 2023, we can set up the time and have discussions on that. Okay, so we start with adventure, superhuman. Detective adventure was last or yesterday's session. Now, what are the different story beats in case of the pirate adventures? Now, typically, we do not have uh, our protagonist right away jumping into the pirate world. We need to set up the story to ensure that the main character either joins or is forced to join the pirates. So the first part is the call to adventure. There is an invitation or there is a situation where our main character either chooses or is thrown into the pirate adventure, and how it maybe for the self-preservation or maybe to showcase his or her bravery, that particular character becomes part of the pirate crew. So again, continuing that refusal of the call. Uh, why is our protagonist not a pirate to start with? What are the reasons uh, not to be a pirate for that particular character? So you might want to show that person is either not living ashore, is not involved in the activities that involve the shipping or the open sea travel, or you can completely push that particular person's age to be a young, maybe an orphan kid who has some links to the pirates, which uh, unfolds throughout the story. You cannot simply say, okay, this particular kid is the son of this big pirate and he knows the treasure. There have to be, or sorry, there must be some incidents that open up that particular hereditary aspects. Okay, meeting the crew. A protagonist gets to know the diverse and the colorful members of the crew, including the captain, the first mate, and other key characters. Now, here also you must understand that uh, in the timeline you are writing these stories, if it is middle of 18th century or early 19th century, you cannot have people, especially the people in power, uh, talking to their team members in a very respectful way. Secondly, a lot of people who are part of such crews, they have had some kind of difficulties or criminal record on their motherland or the city where they belong, and they might be runaways. So the exceptional part will be an actual doctor or an actual uh, professional or an accountant who is part of that particular journey. So if that is the case, you cannot simply tell that towards the end of the story. You have to showcase or give some background of that particular person or the talent that you want to use at a later stage. Uh, Setting the sail or while the ship leaves the port, sets out on the open seas. So either it can be rough waters or dangerous weather, or it can be that the captain or the main character protagonist, he has been uh, duped into joining the that particular crew or is being towed along with the luggage. So whatever is your setting, how the transition from the existing on dry land life of your protagonist and switching to the open seas, there should be one or a set of events that pushes your character into the open seas. And now, once you are entering the seas in the open seas, that's where the actual obstacles are shown. The crew encounters a series of obstacles and challenges, including there can be rival pirates, sea monster, or treacherous storms. Again, while the storms as well as the sea monsters are kind of uh, good obstacles to have, but a battle between uh, another navy or naval battles, if you would like to showcase those, you must understand in which seas you are going to write the story, uh, who were the famous captains of the time, what kind of urban legends or folklores were there related to the sea, as well as which country or set of countries either controlled or were fighting for that particular trade route. So, for example, if you want to showcase England to uh, India before Suez Canal, you have to understand that the travel route was through Atlantic over to the Africa, South Africa, and then all the way towards north on Indian Ocean. You cannot have Suez Canal before Suez Canal was opened. You cannot have going through the Mediterranean. So be very careful about how you are charting the paths and during the battles, who are the pirates fighting? Is it the other pirate group? Uh, and if it's a naval battle, you need to understand not only the controlling countries, but also the designs of the ship. The betrayal is a very common theme in the pirate adventures. Either your protagonist or antagonist's crew. If you have a single protagonist who's alone in a within bunch of thugs on the uh, pirate ship, then the person who betrays the pirate captain will help your protagonist, and it can be other way around also. So the rescue is about two things. First is your crew or your protagonist is stuck in a place or in on the ship and needs to get out of a difficult situation. Or the second part is that after some storm or bad weather, they have been marooned on an island or in a very difficult uh, place, which is unknown or which is that is enemy territory, and how do they uh, survive and rescue from that. And today, the stories that we are going to discuss today will actually give you a little bit of subplots related to these. Then again, our favorite topic, the treasure hunts. Finally, there is a reason the pirates are following or kidnapping someone. If it's a regular ship or it's being attacked upon by pirates, then that is the treasure. Or if you want to make it even better, you can involve the treasure maps. But remember, for making treasure maps, you should have some idea of the topography or the weathers around that particular area. Because at the time, if you want to really showcase an ancient treasure from 17th or 18th century, you cannot simply have that treasure showing up tomorrow or next month in 21st century. Either you should have big bad weather, or you should have some kind of earthquake, volcanic eruption that actually shuffles uh, some ocean floor, because uh, if a treasure has not been found for last 200 years, there might be some layers on top of it. And why will those layers come off? So whichever way you are approaching the story, these are some of the ideas. Again, there will be battle around the treasure also, a final showdown, and then your crew, or you can say the crew that has helped your protagonist, who had always had higher morals than the other crew members. They return to the port, often richer and wiser. And then it's possible that a person who was just uh, a cleaner on the ship but showcased a very brave action or character gets to own his or her own ship. So you show that transformation, or when you start the story, you show the struggle. The person is struggling because of the money, because of the social stature, because he's been kicked out some places, thinking that he's a beggar or he's good for nothing. But after this, he goes back and maybe buys something expensive or purchases the whole castle or something shows off. So you can introduce that aspect as part of the character transformation. So the first story we discuss today is Treasure Island. It's written by Robert Louis Stevenson. And R.L. Stevenson was actually himself very frequently ill during his childhood. It said that he had suffered from chronic lung ailments along with symptoms typical of tuberculosis, breathing problems, and spitting up the blood. And there are multiple forums that actually discuss just what kind of sickness R.L. Stevenson had. So if you want to join those, you can search them online. However, the important aspect is that for a person with such a fragile health, he actually wrote some excellent adventures, open sea adventures. And two of my favorites that we'll discuss today, one is the Treasure Island. Treasure Island is like the book one or 101 pirate literature. Excuse me. We'll go through the key events here. And the other one is Kidnapped. So the good thing about Kidnapped is it's a mix of uh, dry land story, or you can say betrayal, and mixed with the on sea adventure on open sea. And then you have some historical aspect to it also. And although in the revenge section also we are going to discuss Count of Monte Cristo. Count of Monte Cristo also refers to, or at least one of the movie versions refers to Napoleon Bonaparte being one of the parties in setting up the main character. Okay, so again, how you want to play with it, which particular event you would like to it to be part of, uh, use that. So, and another, remember in the open sea adventure, the weather is very important thing, the cartography, the map, how the winds are on the oceans, on which or during what time of the year, which ports are active, which ports are avoiding the cargo, what are the problems facing each port. So do some additional research if you want to write about open sea adventures or pirates. So in Treasure Island, you have Jim Hawkins as the main character, a young lad, teenage lad who's staying in a village next to the sea, and he in the introduction of the story, he is the least likely character to find the map and to get the treasure. So set up your story how map ends up in the hands of Jim. And then again, according to the legal system, either you need to prove that you are the rightful owner of the map, or the person who buried that treasure is related to you and you are the heir. So again, legal aspects are always in parallel with the uh, pirates or open sea stories. So then there is a voyage to Treasure Island. Jim, being a young, naive chap, he trusts the ship captain, and then there is a mutiny on the ship. Mutiny or betrayal, it's up to you how you want to play that, but it's a common theme. Now, you may showcase that there is a mutiny that is either thwarted by the captain using his people skills, or he forces and chooses the violent means to kill someone in front of the rest of the crew to send a message. So it's up to you how you want to showcase the mutiny, give the reasons for mutiny, as well as how or what is the outcome of the mutiny. Either the outcome will ensure that your uh, mostly your antagonist is now the absolute strongest person on the ship. Nobody is going to challenge him, and thus it makes uh, the life or the situation of your protagonist even more difficult. Or the second option is that there is a mutiny, and because of some other external reason, the mutiny is avoided, but your protagonist gets the information that which particular person is most likely to help him or her when he is part of the group. Then again, arrival on the island, it search for the treasure. Here also you will have some friendships, some enmities coming up, as well as uh, who is carrying what kind of weapon, who is guarding what. Remember, a big pirate ship rarely will travel to the island. The big pirate ship will send the small ships rowing or rowboats, sorry, smaller boats to the pirate island. So the overall journey cannot be that you swim from the ship to the island and you pick up all the treasure and then you are back on board. You have to use the smaller boats, and those smaller boats need to be rowed. Now you need someone to carry that treasure and put it on the boats. So think about it, draw all the events properly. Don't just skip these events. Remember, it is a lie, but you have to make it a believable lie. And then there is again search for treasure, treasure hunts or clues. Now it can be a straightforward map, it can be a key, it can be understanding of some symbols. So, or it can be a rhyme that only your protagonist knows. But in this case, they search the treasure based on the map, and that's where Long John Silver, the captain, he betrays uh, Jim Hawkins. Now, uh, Long John Silver is a very famous pirate character, and a lot of restaurants I have seen in Western countries actually have that name. And at that time, I didn't know that it was name of a pirate. And then how do you escape from the island? Now, the betrayal doesn't have to be of the captain or of the strongest character. It might be the muscle who's next to your um, ship's captain. So how you want to keep the power structure of the ship, that's again up to you. Then you escape from the island. Now, during the escape, that can be a battle. You want a battle on land, on sea, on the boats. You want boats versus boats. You want boats versus the ship, and showcase the other skills that your main character has. That's up to you. And then the rightful heir with the treasure returns home and the story is resolved. So, this is a short storyline of Treasure Island. However, there are a lot of rhymes, a lot of songs in this story. I think Yo Ho Ho and a Bottle of Rum being one of them, as well some other characters in this story. So it's up to you how much complexity you want to introduce in your story to make it believable. So just a little bit about the character analysis. Jim Hawkins, the young kid who is the protagonist, who is the actual heir of the treasure. He begins as a young naive boy, uh, thirst for adventure. He doesn't have much experience outside his village, but when he ends up in a voyage and on a treasure island, he is more cautious, he's self-reliant, and uh, it shows the maturity as well as the responsibility because he helped lead the battle for the treasure. Now, this is again coming of the age story also, that as and when the obstacles show up, your main character will rise up to the occasion, take that risk. Sometimes it's a calculated risk, at other times it's a foolish risk. So you have to spread based on what kind of character you have in your mind. Long John Silver, a typical pirate character who's ruthless as well as a cunning manipulator. To start with, he actually is very friendly with Jim Hawkins. That's why at Treasure Island, when he tries to take the treasure, it is a betrayal at that stage. Uh, so, just like a typical pirate captain, he thinks only for his own interests. And about the end, again, do you want uh, the antagonist or the pirate who has betrayed against your protagonist? What kind of end do you want? Do you want that person to be jailed, taken up by the authorities? You want that person to be thrown on a marooned island where he has limited supply of food? I think in Pirates of Caribbean, Jack Sparrow is left with a gun and one shot. So, or you actually want to give a very brutal death to the pirate. That's up to you. Captain Smollett is another character who protects his crew, and again, you cannot simply see any captain or any naval person by default will not trust a pirate crew member. So, irrespective of how Jim is part of the pirate crew, you cannot expect the authorities to trust him right away. So make sure you have those conflict situations or those discussions or those small events that lead to building that trust. Okay. Now, this is actually a book on Stranger Tides, and I think second or the third movie of Pirates of Caribbean series of Disney. One of the movie's titles is on Stranger Tides. So I just looked at the similarities between these two, the book and as well as the movie series. And some of the similarities are the pirates and their way of life. They follow gold. They are proud to be manipulative, to have no respect for the rules, as well as respect for anyone who is going through a bad situation. Typically, they are searching for treasure. They are either the users of voodoo magic or they are scared of some of the bad omens. So they are normally shown superstitious. Blackbeard, as a very strong pirate character, is in both of these um, books and series. Then zombies and supernatural elements, how you want to use it on the sea, daytime, evening time, full moon, dry land, hills, or a particular place based on the longitude and the latitude, based on the weather. So, how do you want to introduce these characters? That's again how you want to write, how you want to include those twists. And remember, every time you are introducing a twist, you are making the life of your main character difficult. But you should also think of the resolution, because after a couple of acts, after those 20, 30, 50 pages, you need to get your character out of that situation. Ships as primary mode of transportation, as well as you can say the naval battles, like the next page. So sorry, the next point. So are you using cannons? Are you using ships or sword fights? Are you using hooks? So if you want, you can actually find Horatio Nelson, a British naval, uh, I don't know his rank exactly, but his battles against the Spanish Armada for the control of some of the sea routes, and how even the designs of the ship, how the fighting techniques of the Spanish Armada were far superior at that time. But later on, how Horatio Nelson fought with them and actually won against a very strong opposition. Fountain of Youth is a central theme. So you have to understand the mentality or the character of a pirate. They have been shunned by the society because of their bad or immoral character, and they are building upon that. They are part of a system where nobody trusts each other. So, Fountain of Youth is something that they want to achieve. Then, humor and adventure as narrative devices. Now, you can have kind of a village idiot or a village fool kind of a character, a person who is dumb enough to get into a bad situation and create that humor, but intelligent enough or uh, close to the main character so that they pull him out of that particular bad situation. So if you want to introduce humor, um, tread carefully there, because uh, you cannot have a very strong, dangerous situation where you need strong characters to survive, and then you have a dumb person who is surviving all those obstacles. So how do you balance that? Again, exploration of themes of greed, loyalty, and betrayal. Greed is common theme. However, loyalty and betrayal. So if you are showcasing betrayal, you have to show loyalty also. If you are showing some of the characters to be completely immoral, you have to showcase others as selfless or willing to do something for the protagonist to get him or her out of a near death situation, or uh, like in our story beats we had discussed, where all is lost. So in some of these situations you will have to get the characters who have who go beyond the call of duty, and they might be very selfish or uh, coward at times, but while helping your protagonist in a bad situation, they showcase courage as well as selflessness. Now the third storyline we'll be discussing is the kidnap. Again, a book from Robert Louis Stevenson. David Balfour is a person living in a village, and he's an orphan. But when he comes of age, his so-called step parents or foster parents tell him that this is the a small gift we have from your parents, and you need to go and meet your uncle Ebenezer. And when David meets him, he get some idea that he actually is an heir to an heirloom, and he is a rich person. But Ebenezer tricks him into going aboard a ship and then sells him to the captain. However, during those conversations, David actually trusts the captain. And later on, there are some brutal incidents on the ship that actually scared David. But then the character of Alan Breck Stewart, a Jacobite rebel, is introduced. Now, Jacobite rebel or the British Redcoats as well as the Scottish landowners, they relate to the timeline in which this particular book was or the story was written. At that time, there were some different groups fighting for the British throne, as well as the Scottish uh, were having their own understanding or relationship with the British. And then you do have some flavor of French soldiers or French sailors or seamen who want to either go against British or who want to avoid the British Navy at one point or other. So now David and Alan, they are being pursued by British. They escape the capture, and then they end up with a Scottish landowner. Now he slowly David understands that his inheritance as well as uh, his life is at risk because of the treachery of his uncle. And on so see, remember, you have to ensure that when David wants to reach to his uncle, he does have support of some of the locals or some of the people who are willing to listen to his story. But overall, he and Alan, they are both being pursued by the soldiers, and they are being held responsible for the crimes that Alan had committed. Now, uh, David's friend or mentor, Mr. Rankilor, he helps him in getting his fortune. Now, all these events are such that because David has been already cheated, he is not the person who goes and meets Rankilor. Then he knows that Alan can be in danger, but Alan has been very friendly and very helpful to him during their struggle or during their journey. So he makes sure that he asks Mr. Enkler, who is actually a lawyer, to help whether Alan can um, escape. So there are a lot of good conversations around that. And then the locals, when I say local, the Scottish landowner James of the Glens and the other characters, they are very well mixed to help David and Alan's journey, to support them at the right time, to make sure they are having consistent threat, so that you don't, and that's what actually captures your imagination in this book, that all the time you do know that David is actually with Alan, and then they are captured by the redcoats, held prisoners, but Alan is the one who is executed because of his involvement, and David is uh, proven not guilty or innocent because of the involvement of his lawyer, and he finally receives his inheritance. And actually, when the final conversations with his lawyer as well as with his uncle Ebenezer are very formal conversations where uh, the initial discussion when David is trapped by his uncle versus the final negotiation where he asks for his rightful share in the fortune, you can see that David has come of his age and he is now acting in a very intelligent and a mature way. These are some of the character analysis as and when he's going through the different phases of the story. And David Balfour, he starts as naive and innocent, but later on, he understands the political landscape. He is confident and capable young man at the end, and he is very confident and he's very self-assured at the end that he can actually manage the fortune and do good. Now, David's uncle is initially portrayed as a lonesome person, which is who is hated by pretty much all the people around him, and he is of course greedy and treacherous character. But as the story unfolds and whatever conversations either the lawyer or David has with Ebenezer, you realize that he had a troubled past and there were some situation or some events that led him to be this bad. But at the end, he actually negotiates well and is happy with what he gets. Now, some of the supporting characters, we have Alan Stewart. Now, see, in this whole list, the actual it's not on the seas, on the open seas adventure. It's a mix of on the open seas as well as on the um dry land adventure. Now, when Alan Stewart goes on the ship, he is actually the one who rescues um David from the ship or from the captain, because it's not actually a pirate ship, it's a trading ship. And that trading ship is actually going to sell David to the American owners to work on the farms. So there is a little bit of, you can say, a factor of slavery involved. And Alan actually helps him a lot, David, and ends up sacrificing himself. James of Glens is a wealthy landowner, Scottish person, but because of his previous relationship with Alan and his commitment to his cause, he is pretty supportive and he has loyalty towards his fellow Scots. So there is something consistent in James of Glens. And then uh, the lawyer, at one point of time you do feel that the lawyer might be hand in glove with David's uncle, but during the interactions, you feel that he himself supports David, as well as uh, suggests some of the ideas that can help even Alan to get out of bad situation. So he ends up being a very trusted ally and mentor to David. Now, these were some of the open sea adventures or the pirate genre stories, different events you can choose. And we'll go to I think the next section is that one, the travels and the science fiction combination. So you can pick and choose. But remember your research, your understanding of the times, uh, what kind of pirates or what kind of ships you are using, uh, during what timeline you are using it, what kind of characters used to be the crew members on a ship. So please do your research properly, and based on that, you can actually build a really good story. Any questions till now on this particular section? Rahul, any questions on any other forum?
Hello.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, so we don't have a question right now.
Okay, I'll go to the next one then. So next we look at the travel and the science fiction adventure. And initially, the adventure genre was actually the journey of the hero. So a lot of classics and ancient or medieval stories, they were based on the main character going on a journey, and then with all the ups and downs, ebbs and flows, how the character changes, how new characters are introduced, and at the end, the character must return to the point of origin and improve the society. Now, two of these stories that I want to share here are 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne and The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Now, both these stories, they have a strong element of science fiction as well as travel. So, I'm combining these two aspects to showcase what are the different aspects, what are the different subplots that you can use. Now, uh, these stories, the commonalities are, there is a journey or an expedition that sets the story in motion. Now it may not be the original expedition, as we will see in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea later on, or in Time Machine, that is the actual starting point of traveling to another time. The discovery of mysterious and dangerous new world or technology. You can have strange creatures or strange societies. Remember, writing about strange societies is difficult because you have to understand the current social structure, tweak it, and then try to create a new society. And there might be times when you have to justify those types of societies during the conversations. Protagonists struggle to survive in a hostile environment. uh, Again, we'll see that with some of the examples. It's not the protagonist, but some of the other related characters. The development of relationship or conflict between protagonist and the key supporting character, hidden knowledge and the secrets of the new world, and they actually challenge or question and might end up changing the original belief system of your protagonist. The exploration of the limits of science and technology. Again, how you want to test on the borderline on about some of the risky ideas. So science or technology in both sense, on both of uh, these ideologies. How do you want to push the frontier or explore the ideas? Then again, transformation is always the key in any adventure, especially in travel. You have to showcase, or you have to uh, ensure that your protagonist confronts his or her biggest fears and wins over them, and that improves him or her. Uh, at the end of the story. Climax or final confrontation with the antagonist or a major obstacle, and then resolution or aftermath of the story. Again, protagonist living the normal life with a new perspective. So we start with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Uh, the main characters to start with are Professor Aronnax, Conseil, and Ned Land, who actually, in the beginning, they go or they start searching for a sea monster that has been terrorizing ship. And the crew of that particular ship, the ship's name is Abraham Lincoln, is attacked by a sea monster. But uh, these characters, these selected characters, are actually rescued by Captain Nemo's submarine, that is Nautilus. So Nautilus is the name of the submarine, and Captain Nemo is the captain of that submarine. Now that's where Captain Nemo takes them captive and tells them that he himself will never set foot on land. He will stay in the ocean, in the sea, as well as there are different incidents, different events, different confrontations with different societies, different groups throughout the story. Then Nautilus travels to South Pole, where Arnax and Conseil win a battle between group of sperm whales and group of giant squid. Sorry, witness a battle. And see, this is even as of now, it is said that we humans know more about the space than we know about the sea. And sea exploration is actually very expensive, extremely difficult, and we don't have a lot of equipment to do that, even at this stage. So, this story tells such great things about the journey inside a submarine across the whole earth. Now we have coral reefs of the Red Sea. Now, the moment they go to Red Sea, they see the underwater world, and then there is now the Nautilus rescues a pearl diver from a shark attack and retrieves a large pearl from the ocean floor. Now, here you have to showcase that uh, Captain Nemo is attacking or is being aggressive towards a selected group of people. Overall, if a person is in danger, Captain Nemo is a good person who helps the person in need. So the suspense that builds up in the story during that phase is that why is he so? Why doesn't he want to go back to land? Who's his enemy? Why would he want to stay on the sea throughout his life? And again, his submarine is actually very advanced submarine based on his that time. At that time, there weren't a lot of submarines, and I think that even the concept was pretty new. Okay, and uh, later on, Ned Land, who's actually a Canadian harpooner who was part of the initial Abraham Lincoln's crew, he tries to escape using a makeshift raft, but he's captured and brought back to the board. And if you see, he is actually the muscle or the strong man of the captive team. Uh, Later on, Nautilus destroys or encounters a warship from home country India, and he destroys it. And that is when he showcases that he's actually his motherland is India, and he despises the British Navy and or the imperial forces during his discussion. And then again, the overall structure is that Captain Nemo is happy with whatever food, whatever uh, support he is getting from the sea, but to refill, to replenish, they often go to the ports and he sends his ships to get the stuff, but he himself won't set his foot on the land. And then uh, there's a time when Ned actually says that I'm sick of the seafood, so I would like to eat some meat, and he goes outside in an island and he gets stuck, and then there are some confrontations. Now, again, there are trips across several islands. There is a dangerous underwater passage called Torres Strait. Uh, Again, uh, underwater city of Atlantis is showcased here. Then you have natives on the island fighting. At times, Nemo is really aggressive and brutal. However, uh, at the end, he is attacked by a group of giant squid and he's killed during the battle. But their own ship sustains a lot of damage, and uh, our main characters, Aronnax and Consil, are rescued by a passing ship. However, in the end, we realize even Ned Land is later found alive. So overall, uh, you see Captain Nemo uh, carrying that hatred towards the imperial forces or towards the people living on land as such. And his advanced weaponry, his scientific approach. I mean, they actually walk the sea floor, what we call now scuba diving. At that time, he actually create some of the stuff is scientifically explained, like using electricity from eels over here. Uh, and but overall, it is still a science fiction. It is still like saying that I have a hydrogen fuel where the trains or the airplanes or the cars, when they are using it, they are giving me pure drinkable water as an uh, exhaust, which we know is not possible, or if it becomes possible, it will take maybe decades to reach at that level. So it's a good mix of science as well as historical fiction that Captain Nemo being uh, a citizen or an ex-prince of one of the Indian states actually ends up uh, traveling the whole world, having one of the most powerful uh, submarines ever, way advanced of its time. And consistently you have the discussions. There are a lot of intellectual discussions between the professor as well as professor and Nemo, as well as some physical confrontations, or you can say the strong headedness of Nemo as well as Ned Land. So very good, very well balanced book to start science fiction if you would like to. Now, some of the crew characters I had tried to write 10, but given the time, I'll say Nemo's crew. Now, if you want to live a life, you need to have a very loyal crew, because imagine your crew cannot leave you because your life is secret. Nobody knows about Nautilus. So, some of the characters I've just put them as Nemo's crew is loyal. So, Captain, he is an Indian prince, but is an enigmatic captain, and he pretty much hates the imperial ships or forces. Ned Land is a Canadian harpooner. The reason Ned Land is on Abraham Lincoln is because they at that time when they are going there thinking there is a big sea monster, and Ned Land being an harpooner is very much excited to hunt that particular monster. And then you have Professor Aronnax, who's the marine biologist, narrator of the story, as well as Conseil, who is the faithful servant who accompanies him on the Nautilus. Now, Aronnax's books. So he's actually very surprised that during some of the conversations that Captain Nemo's library has Aronnax's book, and some of the concepts that Aronnax had thought about, Nemo actually showcases him on the ocean floor that this might be referenced back to your research or your idea, but here is the practical example. So that's the point I already make. A very good mix of intellectual conversations as well as the hard-headedness of some of the uh, brave characters throughout the story. The next story is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Now here, The Time Machine, in its original form, this particular story doesn't have a lot of switches back from the current time to the future or to the past. So, just about the book, the main character protagonist introduces the concept of time travel to his dinner guests. So it's such a casual conversation, because we have been viewing in 2023, at least in the last 15 20 years, we have seen so much stuff on time machine or time travel. But in this story, it is just another scientific invention that is being discussed with the dinner guests. And the protagonist explains his first journey to the future, that is 802,701 AD, and where he encounters two different groups of humanoids who live in either utopian society or dystopian society. So one of them, and this is again another theme of science fiction, having an utopian or a dystopian society, which is used in Brave New World, which is used in Elysium also. So you have these different societies. They are Eloys are utopian, living with best of everything available to them, whereas Morlocks are opposite. And how the protagonist gets stuck there and gets out of that situation. The second journey to the future is to the year of 30 million AD. Now, there he observed the death of Earth as well as evolution of giant crabs and butterflies. Now, again, it is pretty commonly said that if humans are taken away from Earth, all other species will thrive on Earth, irrespective of land or ocean or even the flora and fauna both. So, in the future, if we are having a near death of Earth experience, it's pretty sure that mankind has been extinct for a long time. So you have to have some other species who took over or took control or is the apex predator. Third journey is to 2 million AD, where the witness is dying red sun and last days of life on Earth. So I think this life is primarily related to actual living things on Earth. And then he returns to his own time. Now, for each of these trips, you have to have a different set of challenges. You have to showcase how life is different, but you also need to introduce the challenges and the obstacles or those situations where your protagonist gets into trouble and now needs to find a way out of it. So again, there are themes of evolution, progress, as well as the consequences of humans' action. An old book, but still the ecological damage that humans are doing, or the climate change we are experiencing. It may not have been called out right away, but overall, the destruction of the earth is the theme. However, if you see at present, we are using different themes or we are consuming different versions of the time travel theme. So, one version is you have two people at the same time at the same place. What will happen if they both touch each other or if they see each other? Then you have something like if you go back in the time and can you change one of the historical events, and that particular event will destroy, as they call, the fabric of time, and it will impact the future or the present. So, and then there are different versions of the space and time. So you can have, again, we were going to discuss this under fantasy, but his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, in that case, you have all these words interconnected, taking the same space, but you have either you need some special devices or objects to cut through these worlds, or there are some places where that particular membrane separating these worlds is weak and you can pass through from one world to another. Metaverse concept in Avengers, Ant-Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and how they are using time travel. That's another example. I don't know if you have seen the movie Run Lola Run. It's a movie, I think from 90s and originally a German movie. So in this movie, uh, Lola is supposed to get some stuff for his boyfriend, and she actually wakes up. I think the moment she dies or something goes wrong, or after certain time duration, she wakes up at the same point of time. And now she has to relive, but she's the only one who knows what's going on. So it's like stuck in a time loop kind of a thing. Then there is another good uh, fiction, science fiction, or historic fiction written by The Man in the High Castle. The basic theme, it's a good series on Amazon Prime, I think, and I think the original books were written by Philip K. Dick, who has written another, I think, Blade Runner's original, or maybe that was William Gibson. I might be confusing these names. But the main theme in Man in the High Castle is uh, actually Germans and Japanese have won the World War II, and now there is there the main continent or even America is being controlled by these two nations, and there is going to be a little bit of conflict between them. However, the Germans are technologically advanced, but the Japanese are more traditional and they don't have the advanced weaponry. That is the first part of it. And the second part is that there are different worlds or different versions of the world, and you can move between those worlds, but there are only very selected few people who can do that, and only they know the key to switching from one world to another. So, a really good theme, really good characters overall. So if you would like to get into historical fiction with some kind of time machine, parallel world, Man in the High Castle is a good watch. Okay, any questions for the current section that I just touched? It's more to do with time travel, adventure, see how the journey will change your characters, what kind of obstacles you want to introduce. Another old example of mine, if you want to introduce an obstacle related to the beach or the person who whose lifestyle is based on fishing, you need to have the contrast between that lifestyle and the person who's just moved from the plains or from the mountains, and how their lifestyle will be different. So uh, you have to pay attention to the timeline, to the historical event uh, based on which or related to which or close to that event you want to write your story. It's like you cannot have people fighting with uh, aircrafts and heat seeking missiles before they were actually invented or even experimented, unless you want to find a way that that particular technology was directly handed over from one advanced world or one advanced civilization to another one. Okay. No questions. I'll move to the next section now. The next section, our initial quote on revenge. So, some of the stories related to revenge: Count of Monte Cristo, Hamlet, Moby Dick, Gone Girl, The Godfather, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Revenant. The reason I wanted to make list of these is that a lot of these stories have been showcased in different forms. They actually represent different timelines. So the Count of Monte Cristo has a different kind of timeline. Some of the movie adaptations, they link it to Napoleon's exile, how the trade was happening across the seas. Uh, Hamlet is again about, you can say, family or extended family and seeking revenge. Count of Monte Cristo is more about betrayal between the friends. Moby Dick is the Captain Ahab's obsession with revenge against the whale. So it again, all three are different so far. Gone Girl is a thriller where uh, I hope you guys have seen it, so I'm going to spoil it for most. But uh, the main character, Amy, actually traps Nick in such a deep web that it's so difficult for Nick to get out, and the story proceeds from there. Godfather is again, we will be discussing this later on. So it is also crime fiction, it is also revenge, as well as about the judicial process, the social impact. A Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is, I'll say, relatively, as compared to others, a recent one, and it showcases the hacker skills of your protagonist. Although physically she's helpless, but she does have some skills that give her an edge over her adversaries. And then The Revenant by Michael Punk. Now this is another book or a story where a person is left for dead by his companions. In the movie, the person, his son is killed and he goes out for revenge. So you have this beautiful setup where Winter, how the person survives, uses his own hunting skills, because the territories are uh, isolated and divisive. So when you move from one territory to another, there will be conflict. You may or may not be allowed to hunt in a different different territory, as well as carrying weapons from one village to another, and you are kind of an outcast or being treated like an enemy. So a really good system of these revenge stories across the timelines. So we start with the Count of Monte Cristo. Uh, Edmond Dantes is a young sailor who's betrayed by his friends and wrongfully imprisoned on false charges. Now, if you see, the first part is the betrayal by his friends, and the second is the wrongful imprisonment, because there are some officials who support his friend, and his friend is from a rich family, so they combine together to push him to the uh, jail for a long, long time on false charges. Now, there you see Dantes is losing hope. He tries kill himself, but overall he gets to meet a fellow prisoner, Faria. Now, there again, he educates him. He tells him how to fight. But again, one thing you need to understand is whatever character transformation Dantes is going through, you have to showcase what and how he is getting it. So one example is, if you want to showcase, at least in this the movie on the YouTube, if you see that, if you want to show that now Edmond is becoming manipulative, you have to give reference to such books. So The Prince by Machiavelli is considered uh, like the go-to book if you want to deceive others, or if you want to take control without a physical confrontation, how to be manipulative. So you have to ensure that there are situations where your character is learning those things. And later on, this person ends up giving the treasure map to Dantes, and then he escapes and he reinvents. He comes in. He's in touch with some other people, he makes new friends, and then he uses his wealth and influence to manipulate his enemies and exact the revenge. Now, in this case, also, it's shown that he goes back to, although, see, the revenge is uh, so ingrained, the feeling of revenge is so ingrained in him that he could easily take that treasure and he could have lived happily wherever he would have wished for. But he wants to go back. He wants to take revenge on the people who had cheated him, who had uh, uh, ensured that he leaves the. He actually is set to a prison where there is no escape. That's when the warden says that, okay, you know. there is no way out. You are here, and stop counting days. So basically, they try to kill his hope. Okay, and be it one of the enemies, he's manipulative with all of them. He's showcasing his wealth, and then he understands that his former fiance is now married and has a son. He tries to entrap his son, her son, Alpe, and then slowly he reveals his identity. He goes back to his former employer uh, and the betrayers, but some of the people who were nice to him, they also end up losing a lot of fortune, or from a riches to rags kind of a story. So that particular character doesn't only go with the bad intention of destroying everything. He ensures that people who help him in different phases of his life, he works with them. He uh, shares his good fortune with selected ones. Now, at the end, again in the movie, you have an happy ending where he actually is connected back to his old fiancée and they live happily ever after. The other option is that he completely leaves the overall deception. Now, to connect it to our original story plots, which we I think discussed in first or second week. So this is again the return of the prodigal son. It is the story of rebirth. And another part is if you compare it with the Shawshank Redemption, you have similar method of escaping from prison. Uh, People who are trying to dig this tunnel, they are not planning for days or hours or months. They are putting years of effort into that. However, the actual escape is different for these two characters in Shawshank Redemption as in and in Monte Cristo. The other difference is that in Shawshank Redemption, uh, the protagonist, Andy Dufresne, he is in a bad situation at a bad time. So you cannot say that he was actually set up by his friends or he was betrayed by the justice system. However, he is exploited by his jailer. In Count of Monte Cristo, the jailer is just being brutal. So you may want to compare these things, and then in Shawshank Redemption, when at the end he escapes, he doesn't want to avenge anyone. He just simply takes the money and whatever he can, and he goes and lives his life happily. So in case of Monte Cristo, he wants to come back and take revenge. Another one we'll discuss is The Godfather. Again, one of the uh, I say most impactful movie, not only in Hollywood but even in local Indian cinema, be it uh, movie culture, be it Hollywood, be it Tamil movies or Telugu movies or Punjabi movies. Uh, the theme of having a family with a strong Don or a crime boss with two or three sons, with the conflict between the sons, and then one of the sons who was never supposed to come back and be part of the business, coming back and avenging his family, getting into a situation where he's completely unaware of, and then at the end coming out as winner uh, by doing some of the things that you can never expect of him, being brutal, being aggressive, right? So, Godfather's storyline actually helps there, and it's not just it. This is not a book that can be discussed even in 1, 2, 3, or 5 hours. You have to read the book, you have to understand, and you have to create your own worksheets related to this book if you want to write on mafia as well as on the revenge genre. Overall, Don Corleone is one of the is the patriarch and one of the most powerful mafia boss in the city, New York City. There is an attempt on his family, and his youngest son gets to be the new head of the family. And actually, Don Corleone doesn't want. Michael to join the business. There are discussions in which says that, America, we love America, but Michael should be part of. He should be a senator, and Michael, I think, is an ex-army person. So overall, the conflict. Why will a mafia boss have something against the other gangs? And then how the eldest son of Don, Sonny Corleone, how is he set up by rival gangs because they play on um, his short-temperedness. They get him into a situation where he's killed. He's isolated from his guards and the stuff. And then slowly Michael understands that what are the weak links in his own family. He understands and analyzes that who were the people who betrayed his father. Then he kills them and runs to Sicily. Even in Sicily, there are people who are trying to kill him. And finally, he returns to the States and then he takes over the reins of the crime family. So again, you have really complex characters. You have family ties, and you have the times at which Michael Corleone actually goes against or physically harms some of his family members because at the end he wants the overall power structure to be within the family. He doesn't want to showcase any kind of weakness to the rival gangs. And some of the scenes uh, they are written so beautifully and they contrast each other. So one of them is the baptism where Michael actually kill the rival gangsters while his son is being baptized in church. So it's such a strong scene. At least in the movie also, if you want, you have to watch at least Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 because it also tells about the rise of Don Corleone. Uh, Similar Indian movies, Naikan, Agnipath, both versions. Uh, there is a Firoz Khan, Vinod Khanna movie. I don't. Dayawan. Similar themes. The daily laborers rising at an individual level or at a group level, and then slowly rising the ladder up or moving up the chain of the crime. So how do you want to use those characters? And then Michael actually lies to his wife that he had nothing to do with the deaths of his own brothers or his sister's husband. So some really strong scenes, but I'll again suggest you read the book, create your own worksheet of the events. And we have last 5 minutes, so I'll go through the story beats of the superhuman. So what is the typical plot structure for an adventure superhuman genre? So first is that you have to have an origin story, that how superhero obtained the powers or abilities. So if you see, we have three different Spider-Man characters so far. For each character, we have every time we or Hollywood introduces a new Spider-Man, they showcase the origin story in a different way. Same is the case for Batman. And for Superman, he's being sent to Earth from the dying planet. The call to action, basically, this is when the regular person, or you can say the person without the superpowers, although it's not true for Superman, but a person such as Bruce Wayne or a person such as Peter Parker, they decide that what's wrong and what can they do about it, what kind of powers they have. So call to action. And then the call to action can be broken down into the realization of the power. And always remember your superhuman character must have an option of choosing the evil path. uh, that temptation must be there because there are external factors and there are internal factors. The external factors are more to do with Spider-Man having the physical ability to move around the city and to be able to fight that particular any particular person. But the internal thing is that does he really want to avenge his uncle or does he really want to kill that particular a bad guy, or does he want to change the person, make him understand what he has done, and at the end be a person who brings in change? Mentor figure, love interest, pretty common in most of these movies, although at times they create conflict, at other times they don't. So for example, in case of Batman, the love interest uh, actually has bigger impact on Harvey Dent, and Harvey Dent ends up becoming Two-Face when Batman and Commissioner Gordon, they decide to rescue uh, Harvey Dent rather than Rachel. So how you want to create maybe some kind of uh, conflict due to the love interest between uh, your main character, your protagonist, as well as some other character. The villain, again, this is a significant threat, but the important part is that your villain in superhuman movies should be ideologically opposite to your protagonist, and secondly, should not be afraid of the actual superpowers of your superhero. You see Lex Luthor, he is not scared of Superman. If you see Doc Ock or any other villain of uh, Spider-Man, uh, they are willing to confront Spider-Man at any time. And same goes for Dark Knight and Joker. And the opposite part is that whatever strengths Batman has, like Batman is the name where I mean, at least in the second movie of the Dark Knight series, it's shown that the crime rate has fallen, and you have criminals who are scared of Batman. But then comes Joker, and he simply says, we don't need to hide from Batman. Let's just kill him. And then before showing that Batman isn't, sorry, Joker isn't afraid of Batman uh, beating him up, you see Joker's high threshold for pain and what kind of craziness he brings on the table when he burns the money, when he kills some of the gangsters uh, on the table. So you have to showcase those crazy characteristics before the confrontation with the protagonist. Again, a showdown. So superhero and villain. So Superman is fighting General Zod. General Zod is again from Krypton and far more powerful than Superman. He has might you might have the person or the antagonist understanding the powers, having more powers, and uh, have fought more battles than your protagonist. A personal struggle is again, it's always Tony Stark's struggle with alcoholism is one issue, but his complete disregard for authority, he's breaking the rules, and at times he pushes his own friends into danger. And this is the pure Iron Man series, not when he joins the Avengers part. Again, the team up. I mean, Avengers, they have everything going on, and then Justice League is bringing on different uh, characters together. However, you have to take a call that is it is it the ideology that is splitting the two groups? Why those two groups are coming together, or is this division between the group, or is there such a big danger that they all have to come together and fight? So one example is Thanos. In case of Thanos, you have to have all the forces combined because Thanos is far more powerful than others. In case of like the last example, we'll switch to that, the aftermath. So you might have a superhero because of the Sokovia Accords, or because of the other collateral damage they have created. You might have one group that is now fighting for a different reason, uh, but that particular split. that particular difference in ideology. You need to build it up, and then you have to showcase that conflict. And then there is sacrifice. I mean, sacrifice is again the way some of your superheroes are showcased. Uh, and it's actually part of your adventure genre story beat, a point where everything is lost, a point where your main character or the hero realizes that until unless I put myself in this grave danger or sacrifice myself, I cannot protect the others. And often those people who the person is trying to protect are the ones this person never cared about. uh, Thor is one example. But if you see the Norse mythology, or sorry, if you read the Norse mythology book by Neil Gaiman, you'll see that Thor is actually the stupidest of all the characters. Loki is the real brain, and because of this, Avengers and all the stuff, we consider Thor as the superhero. But if you read the actual mythology, Loki is the best and the most interesting character in Norse mythology. So have that point of view. Go for alternative readings like that. So this is what we discussed today: pirates and open sea adventures, different beats, different storylines. Travel and science fiction we combined between the time machine as well as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. How you can use different components to combine and create a richer story. Revenge has always been a very engaging subject. You have to showcase what is the reason, uh, again, a person's transformation, and most important, the decision you need to make is whether the person is going to destroy himself or herself uh, in the pursuit of revenge, or whether the person takes that right step and stops just before that final destructive step or action, and then leads a good life. And then some of the story beats in superheroes. Any questions on today's session? So if I mean, you can just put it on the chat or just unmute and call. So the last session will be on science fiction, sports, and fantasy mythology, because we touched a little bit upon historical fiction, and overall the setup of your story is really important. So I might bring in a little bit of mythology, fantasy, and historical fiction together, because we have had some discussions on science fiction and sports, but fantasy, mythology, and historical fiction we have not touched upon. So I might split the time more to favor fantasy, mythology, and historical fiction as against science fiction and sports. However, any changes, any points you would like to discuss, drop a note. And there are not any more questions. I thank you for your time. You guys have a wonderful evening, and Jai Bhim.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rahul. Bye.
Bye bye.